Yep, it's official. It is Friday. Made it through your work week. For me, I confuse all my days. So sometimes I don't know if it's Friday, Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, because I work every day. I work every day. So congratulations for getting through the work week. Tomorrow's Saturday, yard work or just chilling, whatever it is. The weekend is here, and you get a break from me as far as the live shows go. I'll still have regular videos coming out on tomorrow and Sunday, but as far as the live shows go, I take the weekends off. But I think that kind of works out because it gives you something to look forward to on Monday. So we'll be back on Monday at 10 p.m. again. So how's everybody doing, by the way? Y'all doing good? I am. I was looking at whenever you're a YouTube content creator and you get YouTube Studio, some YouTubers say don't look at the numbers because you'll get obsessed with them and this and that, and yeah, it does happen. But it's nice to see whenever you have a really good month. And this month, March, has been so good. Think about this, guys, what I'm about to say. This month, March, which is supposed to be a down month for a college football YouTuber, could break the record as far as views, revenues, subscribers, not so much, but the views and all the other stuff, yes, we're right there. We're right there. We're very close. And remember, this is a roller coaster. So your best months are going to be July, August, and to some extent September. Those are your boom months, right? That's where you're usually going to break your records, make new records, all that stuff. And then the regular season rolls around. Good months, steady months, but just a little bit lower than your boom months. And then after the national championship and playoffs, usually you drop. Well, we haven't done that. We're actually climbing. So we are having the best month that we've had since all the way back in July whenever we had our boom months. That was when we had our biggest growth, was July and August. And this month could be better than that month. And that gets me excited right there. So, and it's all because of you guys too. Like, I'm just sitting here talking, yapping, obsessed with college football and conference realignment. But it's you guys that come, support the channel. You leave comments. You actually subscribe. You hit the thumbs up. I really, really appreciate it. Can't do it without you. So if you haven't, please hit the like button. It really helps these live shows. It's not really a pat on the back. It's just telling YouTube, hey, we kind of like this. So tell other people so that they can see it too. So you're not just helping me, you're also helping yourself as well. So it's subscribers helping the content creator and vice versa. It's amazing how it works. And this is amazing, guys. You guys have absolutely blown me away for sure. All right, so by the way, just in case you don't know, if you have a question, comment, troll attempt, correction, sometimes I do get things wrong. It does happen. Any of that stuff, you want my attention, you want everybody else's attention, hit the super chat button. It's that little dollar sign that you see in the bottom right-hand corner. Anything you put in that super chat is going to go on the screen for me to read and for everybody else to see. And it helps support the channel. And we always appreciate those donations. It helps us keep the lights on. And you know what, I'm going to be honest, it helps our morale. It keeps us happy. So okay, we're doing something right, the people still like us, let's keep going. We don't get depressed and all that stuff. Anyways, enough about me. Let's talk about what we really want to talk about. And that's once again the Pac-12. Now tonight's going to be a little bit different because I've been talking about, okay, this is going on with the Pac-12. It's not looking good. Well, today I saw on the Monty Show, and I didn't get to see too much about it. So if you know more about it, then feel free to chime in the comments section. But there might be some good news for the Pac-12. I'm hearing that NBC, Universal, and USA might be interested. I will say this. Yes, J.K. Marshall, the Monty Show, the show that banned me because whenever I supported their channel, sad story, I have to say this because J.K. Marshall kind of, rung a bell again. So yesterday I was watching the Monty Show, and I purchased a $1.99 membership supporting the channel because I really do like that channel. I do. But for whatever reason, whenever I made the purchase, it popped up as my alternative channel that I don't use. It's more of a troll channel. I even changed the logo to an M for Michigan because a lot of people think that I'm a Michigan fan, go to blue, even though I've made it clear, West Virginia. But, just to poke some fun and being a troll, yes, that was there. I don't ever use it. I'm too busy doing this. So I hadn't even forgotten about that. But whenever I purchased the membership, I had been, talking in the chat to the Monty Show, and they've been putting it on the screen. All of a sudden, the membership pops up, and it's gold and blued, but a different avatar. So then they're like, "Oh man, you're gonna have to, we're gonna have to ban you because you're impersonating gold and blued." I was like, "No. That would, for whatever reason, it was purchased under that channel. I still don't know why. I don't know why it did that. So they banned me because I impersonated myself. Yeah, I impersonated myself, and you can't impersonate other people in chats. Which I understand that rule, I do. But like I was like the other comments they were putting on the screen, reading, conversing, membership. Oh, he's impersonating. But then I tried to flood the comment section with the explanation. No, guys, that was the other channel. I don't know what popped up. Blah blah blah. They didn't put those up there. They didn't read those. So I'm banned. Whatever. Anyways, it was funny. It was funny, and I still support those guys. It's a great show over there. I'm not trash talking them or anything like that. They had a lot of comments coming in. A lot of people were watching. It was a very active show. So it was just, they were probably just overwhelmed. I'm not here to trash talk them, but it is a funny story that I had to tell you guys. But for the Pac-12, now NBC Universal, I'm thinking that's more Peacock, and Peacock is, of course, streaming. I don't think that necessarily would help with the Pac-12 because it's still streaming. And really, I think the biggest issue that the Pac-12 is going to have with this new deal, if it stays as is streaming heavy. They're not going to have as much exposure. They're going to have one game a week on ESPN After Dark, and that's it. And that's talking about the latest deal that I knew, which I'm hearing that ESPN might have actually backed out of it, and it's a no-go for them. But USA, that would be a big deal. That would be a big deal. Larry, what I was saying is the NBC thing I was hearing was Peacock, and Peacock is streaming. But USA, that is a completely different story. USA is definitely linear cable. So if they were able to get a deal with USA, make a little bit more money than what they were going to with ESPN, get a couple more games, that could definitely help the Pac-12. That would be the life preserver that they're looking for. Now, would they be able to make competitive money versus the Big 12? Yeah, they could. They could. Could they go over the Big 12? I mean, it's possible. I don't see it happening. I don't know the numbers, anything like that. But it is very possible that USA could buy up some Tier 1, Tier 2 rights and put some Pac-12 games on USA. Here's the thing, though. So ESPN, they own the rights to Pac-12 After Dark. So if ESPN backs out, there is no title, Pac-12 After Dark. That's done. That's over. It's not going to happen because ESPN owns the right to that. My question is, number one, will USA run Pac-12 programming in that same time slot? That's my first question. The second question is, if they do, what would they call it? Because they can't call it the Pac-12 After Dark. Now, there's other names out there that you can call it, I know, but that's because that was the way they branded it. It was, all right, let's watch some Pac-12 After Dark. So how would they brand it now? So it would be a good thing for the Pac-12. It would, for sure. But at the same time, it's almost like hitting the reset button. You'd have to rebrand it. You'd have to let everybody know where they're playing, the time slot, all that stuff. So there would be some foundation work that would need to be laid down. But that is definitely good news for the Pac-12, and they needed it. Having said that, we'll see what happens, because look at the road that the Pac-12 has taken in the past couple months. First, we heard that ESPN was interested, and it was a decent deal. It was competitive to the Big 12, right around what the Big 12 was making. And then we heard that ESPN had to pull their deal because of the Disney thing, and they were laying off workers, and ESPN reoffered. And then I think that was the deal that I was hearing about, as far as $9 million per team per year, and that's at 10 members. So then the recent development was ESPN and the Pac-12 have just kind of separated. The gap has widened, and ESPN has officially pulled out. I haven't confirmed that, but that's what I'm hearing all over the place, is that ESPN has pulled out. They're not, they're not even close to having a deal. So the Pac-12 would need something to fall back on, especially for linear cable. They're just not going to survive without linear cable. I mean, maybe they can somehow convince these teams to sign a grant of rights. I don't see that happening, number one. But number two, even if they do get these teams to sign the grant of rights, then they're basically signing a piece of paper that's going to kill their football program. Because if you sign a deal that's either heavily streaming or streaming exclusively, your recruiting is going to go down, because these recruits do not want to play for a team that's not going to play on cable. What? We play in front of streaming audiences? No. So they're going to pick the other choices, right? And then when recruiting goes down, of course, so does the football program. And whenever the football program, whenever it goes down, what happens? The fan support goes down. And some of these schools live in college towns, and even the economics in and around that city where that university is, the economics in August to November are going to take a big hit. So it's an avalanche. Starts here, goes all the way down, and by the time it gets to the bottom, it is an absolute mess. I will say this. I don't think it would hurt Washington as much, because they live in Seattle. I don't think it would hurt Arizona State as much, because they preside, in Phoenix. Let's see, maybe Utah with Salt Lake City. I'm pretty sure everybody else, though, would get walloped. I mean, even Oregon, in Eugene, Oregon. I mean, that's basically, it's a decent-sized town, but it's pretty much a college town. You have Corvallis for Oregon State, definitely. I mean, that city would take an absolute beating. Pullman, Washington for Washington State, not good at all. Boulder, Colorado would take a big time hit. Tucson, Arizona, big time hit. I'm really not going to put Stanford and Cal in there, because they really don't care about football anyway, so I don't think it would affect them. But most of the Pac-12 would take a big time hit if they actually sign the grant of rights. So that's the biggest hurdle that George Kliavkoff has to overcome. It's one thing to come up with a TV deal. It's another thing to come up with a TV deal that satisfies everybody to the point to where they actually sign the grant of rights. Once he gets them to sign the grant of rights, that's when he can be like, oh, man, this was rough, but we did it. Whew, I'm glad that's over. But until he gets them to sign those grant of rights, sweating bullets. But at least the Pac-12 now has hope. Now, I talked about something crazy that I heard. And this was actually from the Swaim Show, okay? And you know what? I don't want to misquote this. Let me make sure I get this down right. This was not that one. I think it's this one right here. Yeah. I think I mentioned this on last night's show, but I want to talk about it a little bit more in depth tonight. On one of his tweets, he said, breaking news, ESPN only paying $9 million per Pac-12 team. We already knew that. But now they're going to offer multiple Pac-12 schools the same money that they'll pay to make a Big 12 move. If more than 4, I'm not a fan. So, is that like a bribe? Is he saying ESPN's going to try to bribe these teams? I I don't know about that, because if ESPN does that and they get caught, lawsuits. Do I put it past ESPN? No, I don't. I don't put it past ESPN, not at all. I think ESPN is definitely capable of that. But man, could you imagine if that actually happened? That would be absolutely crazy. And of course, I also did a video earlier in the day to where Oklahoma fans are actually wanting. Remember, Oklahoma's going to the SEC, right? Well, I'm hearing that Oklahoma fans, they're wanting the Big 12 to get the four corners, and then that will give the green light to the Big 10 to get Washington and Oregon. And the reason that Oklahoma fans want Oregon and Washington in the Big 10, because they want USC to have the toughest schedule possible, because they're still mad at Lincoln Riley. And I don't blame them. I'm not trash talking Oklahoma at all. Not even a little bit. I understand. I trash talk Rich Rodriguez forever. I mean, forever. Now I'm way past that. And honestly, I would give him another chance at this point. I really would. I can't put up with what we're seeing on the field right now. It's garbage. Absolute garbage. So I would give him another chance. So I understand the way Oklahoma fans feel about Lincoln Riley. I do. I really do. But, I mean, they are definitely behind the Big 12 getting the four corner schools, and then the Big 10 getting Oregon and Washington. That way, USC, has a tougher schedule than what they would now. Now, the travel is going to be brutal. That part of the schedule, absolutely brutal. But if you look at the Big 10 top to bottom, the Big 10 is very top heavy. Very, very top heavy. And it's basically Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State that carries that leg. Now, year before last, Michigan State was pretty good. This year, Illinois was okay. Purdue had a bounce back year. So you do have some teams that have better years. But the three teams that sustain the Big Ten, Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State. Those are the three teams that sustain the Big Ten right now. So the chances of USC playing all three of those teams in the same year, not very high. Not very high. They might pull one of them, and maybe it's a home game, so they don't even have to travel. So I do think that USC's schedule, if you're not counting travel, will lighten up a bit going from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten, especially if you look at the Pac-12 recently. Now, the Pac-12 gets a lot of flack because they haven't made the playoffs in the past 7-8 years. But it's not because they're not a good conference. Okay, guys? The Pac-12 is actually a really, really deep conference. They had five teams finish with 10 wins this year. 5 teams. 5 teams finished with 10 wins. Excuse me. The problem is USC lost to Utah, gave them their second loss. Utah already had 3 losses, so they're not getting the playoffs, right? Washington, had they not lost to Arizona State, they would have made the Pac-12 championship with 1 loss, and you would have had a 1-loss Washington versus a 1-loss USC. Winner gets into the Pac-12. So it's almost like it was too competitive. Maybe that's been part of the problem with Pac-12. I don't know. But I don't think that the Big Ten is quite as deep as the Pac-12. But those teams at the top are better than all the teams in the Pac-12. I will say that. Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan have been consistently better than all the teams in the Pac-12. Now, maybe there's a year where Oregon was better than one of them, or Washington was better than one of them, or USC was better. But consistently, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State have been better than any team in the Pac-12. But the rest of the league, Big Ten's not deep. So, yeah, I think that USC is going to have an easier schedule going into the Big Ten if you're not counting travel. But that does play a factor into it. So if the Big Ten brings in Oregon and Washington, I guarantee you that USC would be playing them every year just because they're on the West Coast. And so their schedule would be tougher than if Oregon and Washington weren't in there, because Oregon and Washington, they're pretty good brands. I think they would also be competitive in the Big Ten. And so Oklahoma fans want every opportunity to make the road as tough as possible because I'm going to tell you straight up. Remember, I'm giving you the opinion of Oklahoma fans, not mine necessarily. But Oklahoma fans think that Lincoln Riley left for Oklahoma because he knew that Oklahoma was going to the SEC, and he went to USC. Even if he knew they were going to the Big Ten, still easier path than if he stayed at Oklahoma and went to the SEC. So they literally think that he went to USC to have an easier schedule. I'll let y'all debate that. I'm just giving you what I'm hearing from Oklahoma fans. Larry Pilgrim, thank you for the $5 donation, buddy. I really appreciate it. It says, as I said in a previous post, cost of living and enrollment for Pac-12 teams are higher. Moving to the Big 12 will hurt enrollment, which academically hurts. I agree with the academic stuff, but for whatever reason, I'm not making the connection as far as cost of living and how that affects the move to the Big 12. I understand what you're saying, and I agree with what you're saying. The cost of living in the western part of the United States, particularly the coast, yeah, it is higher. But maybe I'm just completely missing it. I don't know. I just don't see how moving to the Big 12 has any sort of correlation between that. Now, and enrollment and stuff, because I don't know, the cost of living part just doesn't make sense to me. I do understand the academics part, and that's the excuse that Utah has been using. They've been saying, no, we don't want to go to the Big 12. That would hurt our research revenue. And I asked the chat, how does that work? And basically everybody said, well, it's because of the connection with Stanford and Cal. And that's when I brought up, the big move, the death move for the Big Ten. If they were to grab Stanford and Cal, that would absolutely obliterate the Pac-12. Not because they have great football brands, but because that's the academic connection. So then Utah wouldn't be able to use that excuse. I don't know. So I think if the Big Ten got Stanford and Cal, that would hurt the Pac-12 more than any other move. I don't think they're going to do that, although I do think there's a chance of that happening. I really do. I don't think they're going to do that. I think the Big Ten is going to grab Washington and somebody else. Maybe it's going to be Washington and Stanford, Washington and Cal. Who knows? Maybe they are interested in Utah. I don't know. Washington, Utah, Washington, Colorado. I don't know. But I think for the next go around, if the Big Ten picks up teams from the Pac-12, one of them has to be Washington. They check all the boxes athletically, fan base size, big-time TV market in Seattle, and they check all the boxes in the academics. I actually think they're the number one research school in the Pac-12 from what I've seen. Maybe it's close between them and Stanford or them and Cal. But from the numbers that I saw, Washington is actually the highest research revenue university in the Pac-12. So not even a debate right there. It has to be Washington. My thing is, I'm scared that if this deal ultimately is either streaming exclusively or streaming heavy, my fear is how much it's going to hurt the football programs. I understand the academics. I get that argument. But if this deal turns out to be what we've been hearing, either only one game a week on linear cable or 0 games on linear cable, that will 100% hurt these football programs, and it's going to hurt the economics around the city, recruiting, everything. And especially if I was a Utah fan, I would be especially concerned because remember, Utah is not that far removed from being in a Group of 5 conference, the Mountain West. It's been like a little bit over a decade. Excuse me. And I had no doubts that Utah was going to have success in the Pac-12. No doubts whatsoever. I think San Diego State's going to have some success in the Pac-12. Not to the extent of Utah, but they'll be all right. So Utah, they were in a Group of 5. They've been in the Pac-12 for a little over a decade now. Remember, they just won back-to-back Pac-12 championships. So Utah has built a good football brand. a great football brand. They just got to stop tripping over themselves in some of these games that they shouldn't be losing. That's it. Then you're talking about playoff Utah. I don't want to see that thrown away. And that's the one thing that I've tried to make perfectly clear. This isn't about me preaching doom and gloom for the Pac-12. This is me hoping that these teams make the right decision. If the right decision is to stay in the Pac-12, by all means, stay in the Pac-12. That is perfectly fine if that's the right decision. But if the right decision is to jump somewhere else, then you need to make that decision. Don't sacrifice your football team in hopes that the Pac-12 stays together and you keep that connection with Stanford and Cal. I wouldn't risk it. I really wouldn't. All right, as usual, I try to give you guys a sneak peek into my videos that I do tomorrow. So that's what I want to do right now. Let me find the right numbers. Listen, I write down stuff so much that I literally have to number it. That way I can match things up for video because not everything is for one video. All right, so I'm going to make a video on this tomorrow. This was a comment from Packer 10, so this is going to be a Get It Gang video idea. Here's what he said. I enjoyed the live stream tonight. So this was from last night's live show. Haven't been able to watch much content of late because of my 3-year-old. I have a potential video idea for you. I watch a lot of your content, Mark Rogers content, and Late Kick content, and I have not heard this anywhere. When Notre Dame's media deal comes up for renewal, they announced they are joining the ACC. Okay, now you have my interest. The ACC picks out a second team to make it an even 16. My preference would be West Virginia. As I have stated in the past, I feel they should have grabbed you guys ahead of Boston College. Everybody thinks that now. I mean, that was just a bad choice. But I think Memphis, Tulane, or possibly, this is where he kind of loses me, or possibly East Carolina or Old Dominion. Memphis, Tulane, and definitely West Virginia, yes, but East Carolina, Old Dominion, I don't think that would work. Sorry, I don't. That would reopen the ACC's media rights because not even ESPN thinks that they could keep paying the same amount under that scenario. My question is, what if ESPN isn't bidding in a vacuum? What if Notre Dame brings NBC along as a partner? NBC bids on a Tier 1 rights for one game a week. They can always opt to take Notre Dame if they're at home. But if FSU and Clemson are both undefeated and Notre Dame is playing Duke, they can let ESPN ABC have the Notre Dame home game. NBC can only take one Notre Dame road game per season to ensure that ESPN ABC get good value out of Notre Dame brand. NBC pays, he's really thought this out, guys. NBC pays $150 million per year for their game, provided they lose out on the NBA. So you factor that in as well. And ESPN ups their payment by $15 million per team. That gets the ACC competitive with the Big Ten and the SEC. All right, I know that's a lot of words, and I don't have a screenshot, so let me break this down real quick. So what he's saying is he's not talking about the Pac-12 negotiation. He's not talking about the ACC negotiation. He's talking about Notre Dame's next media negotiation. And people forget about that. That is going to be very, very important. Notre Dame wants anywhere between 60 to 80 million a year. So it's going to be a big question if NBC can match that, especially if they get the NBA. Remember, NBC wants the NBA back. They are going to bid on the NBA. Will they have enough left over to where they can, give Notre Dame the money that they want? The way that ties into what I'm talking about tonight is, well, we're hearing that NBC via Peacock, via, I don't know, maybe linear cable, I don't know, possibly interested in the Pac-12. So if NBC bids on the Pac-12 and NBC bids on the NBA, will NBC have enough money to pacify Notre Dame? Will they have enough money to pacify Notre Dame? Well, I don't think so. If they bid on the Pac-12 and they land that deal, and they bid on the NBA and they land that deal, I don't think NBC would have the money or be willing to shell out the money that Notre Dame's wanting. And that's when NBC could look at the ACC. So they could, I mean, technically it's not like this, but they could come in as, a partner of Notre Dame. Notre Dame joins the ACC full-time. NBC bids on the ACC. They don't have to shell out as much money, so they don't have to shell out, $80 million. I know this guy is suggesting $150 million, but if they're bidding on all these other brands, they're not going to shell out $150 million, but maybe they can do $50 million, and then ESPN, bumps up their payments $10, $15 million. Then we're talking about ACC teams making possibly $60 million a year. NBC is a network that people need to keep their eye on. They really do. They've been kind of, they've been really quiet. They've been watching what everybody else is doing. They're not in financial trouble. They definitely want to stay in the college football world, whether it's just Notre Dame or getting a piece of the Pac-12 and the ACC. So what if NBC is looking at these conferences and they're like, well, maybe it would be better if we got a piece of two different conferences instead of just holding on Notre Dame. Think about it. Yes, Notre Dame is one of, if not the biggest football brand in the entire nation, and NBC makes pretty good money off of Notre Dame. I had the numbers of Notre Dame's viewership last year, and they were okay, but they weren't great. I think they only had one top 10 game as far as viewership goes, and it was Notre Dame, Ohio State. So, yes, they get good viewership. But could NBC, if they get a part of the Pac-12 and a part of the ACC and encourage Notre Dame to join the ACC, and they are guaranteed every home game of Notre Dame unless there's a better game, then they can get that game, and they'll give the Notre Dame home game to ESPN or ABC. I think ESPN and ABC would play ball on that. I think this is a good idea. I think NBC would be willing for that, be willing to do that, and I think ESPN would be willing to do that as well. I think everybody wins in this particular scenario. Now, whether it actually happens, I don't know. Who knows? But that's why I put these videos out, because you really don't know what happens. And it's these little things that people put out there that I'm like, man, how did I not think of that? That's amazing. I love this idea. So I'm going to talk about that. Now, I will say this. I'm not going to preach West Virginia to the ACC. Now, I think that's done and over with. There was interest between West Virginia and the ACC back in 2021. Those talks fell off. Now the Big 12 has reloaded. I'm not 100% sure that West Virginia has signed the Big 12 granted rights, but I'm pretty sure they have. I'm like 90, 95%. I'm 90, 95% chance. I'm 90 to 95% sure that they signed the Big 12 granted rights, but I'm not 100%. So I think that ship has sailed. I'm done talking about that. I'm not predicting that, nothing like that. But I do think that there is still a real chance of Notre Dame joining the ACC. Remember, it is in their contract. It is in their contract. If Notre Dame joins a conference before 2036, it has to be the ACC. So if NBC doesn't have the money to pay Notre Dame for them to remain independent, maybe they can get NBC interested in the ACC, and that's how Notre Dame can make the money that they want to make, because it would be ESPN and NBC's money. So NBC wouldn't have to shell out all of it, just some of it. ESPN would cover the rest of it. And ESPN getting Notre Dame into the ACC, they would want it. Because remember, ESPN is not going to be carrying any Big Ten games for the foreseeable future after 2024. None. They backed out of those negotiations. They don't even have Tier 2 or Tier 3 rights. None. So the thought of Notre Dame ever possibly joining the Big Ten absolutely cringes ESPN, because they know that if the Big Ten was ever able to grab Notre Dame, that would hurt their ratings tremendously, and they know that Fox would make bank off of Notre Dame if they did join the Big Ten. So you better believe ESPN would definitely be willing to listen as far as what type of numbers, and if they need to renegotiate the deal and bump up the values, absolutely. Or maybe they could do what these. Think about this, guys. Think about this. Think about this. So what have we been hearing recently? We've been hearing from the Clemson athletic director. We've been hearing from the Florida State athletic director. We've been hearing from the North Carolina athletic director and the Miami Hurricanes athletic director. They want unequal revenue share. They're seeing what, the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be making. They're like, we have good viewership for you guys. And all of those, except North Carolina, do have the top 4 ratings. I would actually swap out North Carolina for Louisville, because Louisville is number 4. There's only 4 teams that have an average of 2 million viewers per game when it's on a major network, and Louisville is one of them. North Carolina is not. North Carolina is not. But, they pull the strings. Tobacco Road. The decisions of the ACC go down Tobacco Road. So, my point is, what have we been hearing? We've been hearing these athletic directors in the ACC saying, hey, we need unequal revenue share because we're not making enough money. And we know we can't renegotiate and these granted rights, blah, blah, blah. So we need unequal revenue share. There is no way that Wake Forest should be making as much as Clemson, or Boston College should be making as much as Florida State, or let's see, Georgia Tech should be making as much as the Miami Hurricanes. And I agree with that. And that's where the Notre Dame argument could also help with that. Think about this. Bringing in Big Ten, yes, it increases the revenue, but what if those top-tier brands stick to it and they're like, we still want unequal revenue share, and Notre Dame's like, yep, I'm with them. I want unequal revenue share. And the unequal revenue share on that deal is going to be even better, because that deal would be better. NBC would be buying into that. ESPN would be bumping up their dollars. So instead of what they're looking at now, maybe the average across the board would be like $50 million per team per year. Well, if you go with unequal revenue share, maybe the ACC could afford to pay, let's say, Notre Dame, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, and the Miami Hurricanes. They can pay them $70 million a year, and the rest of the teams get paid, $35, $40 million, which is still more than what they would be making right now. So even though they would have unequal revenue share, they would still be making more than what they would be making right now under the current deal. So actually, everybody would be making more money. Even the teams that would not be getting the best of the unequal revenue share, they're getting less than the bigger brands. They would still be making more than what they're making right now. Everybody, and I mean everybody, wins in this particular scenario. And that is why I am doing a video on this tomorrow. I think this is a good idea. I think it's possible, guys. I think this is very, very possible, because we found out today that NBC is interested in the Pac-12. We also know that NBC is interested in the NBA. I really don't see how NBC would have the money to please Notre Dame, to give them what they want, because Notre Dame wants between 60 and 80 million. If NBC has a part of the Pac-12 and a part of the NBA, they're not going to have that type of money. But if Notre Dame joins the ACC, then NBC could chip in 40 or 50 million a year towards the ACC. The top brands can make, around 60, 70 million. And even the bottom brands are making 35, 40 million. Everybody wins with that. Is it going to happen? Probably not. Probably not. I don't think the chances of it are high. I don't think it's likely, but I do think it's possible. I do think it's possible. You know what's funny? If the head of all these companies, NBC, ACC, Pac-12, Notre Dame, if all of those brands and all of those companies had Brett Yormark as their leader, I think they would make this deal, because Brett Yormark is not scared to put the Big 12 out there. He's not scared to be aggressive. He's not scared to try to make some deals. He's not scared at all. Think about that. And the Big Ten, they're looking for a new commissioner. Kevin Warren will be leaving on August 16th. I found out the actual date, August 16th. They're looking for a new commissioner. If they're not at least talking to and not at least looking at Brett Yormark, they're idiots. So I guarantee you they are. So if you're a Big 12 fan, and I am, I'm a little bit nervous right now. You have to take the bad with the good. Think about the team that you root for, okay? Unless you're like Alabama, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, maybe USC, the biggest Michigan, the biggest brands that can afford a lot of money, maybe LSU in that bracket. Unless you're those elite teams that make a lot of money, if you hire a coach and they start winning and winning and winning, now you got to be scared that other teams are going to come and get him. That's exactly what happened with Rich Rodriguez, except the winning isn't the reason why he left. The reason why Rich Rodriguez left, and a lot of people don't realize this, is because he asked for a raise for his assistants because he wanted to keep all the coaches there. He didn't want to lose any coaches. He knew he had a good thing going in Morgantown, and West Virginia said no. So Rich Rodriguez leaving West Virginia wasn't Rich Rodriguez's fault. It was West Virginia's fault. They didn't want to keep the band together. My point is, when you're a fan of a brand like a West Virginia or a North Carolina or an Oklahoma State or a Utah, brands like that, good brands, but they don't have the most money. When your coach starts winning at an elite level, you start getting nervous because the bigger brands are looking. So that's when you start to see, okay, are these other brands, do they have a job opening? No. Okay, we're good. And then next year, Texas came open. Ohio State came open. Michigan, then the bigger brands start opening up, and you have to worry because they definitely have more money. So as a fan of a team that's in the Big 12, Brett Yormark he's been lighting it up. I mean, he's basically making the news every stinking day because, Big 12 talking 4 quarters. Big 12 has a partnership with Rutgers Park. Big 12 has pro day across the entire conference. I mean, he's making moves left and right. But it just so happened that the Big Ten, their commissioner, Kevin Warren, accepted another job, so now they have an opening. So now we're nervous over here. Brett Yormark making all these great decisions, but that means the Big Ten. And maybe the Big Ten would be, maybe the Big Ten has more money. Maybe the Big Ten is willing to pay him more money. Things you got to look at. I will say this, guys. I'd rather have that problem that I just mentioned than the problem that West Virginia has right now. Nobody wants Neil Brown because Neil Brown has not had any success at West Virginia. That's the problem that I don't like having. Having a bad coach that's not winning and nobody's interested in him because he's bad. Now, the problem of having a good coach and he's winning and bigger brands wanting him, that's a problem. I would rather have that problem than this freaking problem that West Virginia has right now. I hate it. This is the worst that I've ever seen West Virginia in my particular lifetime. It's very hopeless right now in Morgantown because the higher-ups have proven that they're not willing to fire him. Now, I'm hoping Ren Baker, our athletic director, changes that, but I don't know. I don't know. But my point was if Brett Yormark was the head of these companies and these brands, then we could see these deals happening more often than not. I think it makes too much sense for NBC and Notre Dame to get together and say, hey, you know what? I think it's actually time for you to get in a conference. We don't have the money to satisfy you as an independent. You'll get paid what you want in the ACC. It's the easiest path to the playoffs. Remember, that factors in. It satisfies the teams that are already in the ACC. Clemson, they want unequal revenue share. So does Florida State. So does Miami Hurricanes. And so does North Carolina. It would satisfy them. But it would also satisfy the lower teams that would make less money. So I think it's a great idea, worth a video, and I'm going to do it tomorrow. So with the news that what we heard today about the Pac-12, NBC, now maybe I'm incorrect, but I got the impression that it was the NBC Peacock network that was interested. In other words, the streaming network. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's actually NBC, the same NBC that puts on Notre Dame. I don't know. That really doesn't make that much sense to me because right now they still do have a TV deal with Notre Dame. That's another question, though. If NBC, the linear cable NBC, is interested in the Pac-12, is that NBC saying, hey, we know we're not going to be able to give Notre Dame the money that they want, so we're going to start diversifying. We're going to get a piece of the Pac-12. We're going to get a piece of maybe the NBA. And who knows, maybe if there's one entity, think about this. If there's one entity that can force Notre Dame to join a conference, it's NBC. NBC can do it. NBC can do it. Because they are the network that has been enabling Notre Dame to remain independent. I mean, ESPN can't shell out Notre Dame type of money to just carry Notre Dame games, right? Fox is tied up with Big Ten and Big 12. I mean, they would bump up the revenue of the Big Ten if Notre Dame joined, but they're not going to do a separate contract for Notre Dame. So Fox, that's not happening. CBS, no, they don't have the money. So it is up to NBC. So if we're talking about NBC, the cable NBC, that actually could be a sign that in the future they're going to be like, we can't do it, Notre Dame. I mean, we can do something, maybe $50 million, but that's our max, man. That's all we can do. Otherwise, we might have to work out a deal with you joining the ACC. And then, we could contribute that way. And you'd still make the money that you want to make. It makes a lot of sense when you really think about it. At least I think it does. I think it's possible. I think that's a real scenario that could happen. I really do. So the Pac-12, they have a lifeline now, right? What would it take if you're a Pac-12 fan, or even if you're not a Pac-12 fan and you're watching this? What would it take for you to relax? Or if you're a non-Pac-12 fan, for you to say, okay, Pac-12 is going to be just fine. How many games does cable networks need to pick up, and how much money does it need to be? I would say for Pac-12 fans to relax that it needs to be a deal worth a total of $350 million at least. That's $35 million per team per year at 10 members. So if you're expanding, you're doing that at your own risk. You're splitting the pie a little bit more, but still that's probably around $32 million. So you're making a little bit more than the Big 12, right? And as far as games per week, I would say at least 2 to 3. At least 2 to 3. If the Pac-12 truly wants to relax, it needs to be at least 2 to 3 linear cable games. Otherwise, you're still in jeopardy of not getting enough exposure. Now, what you do with that After Dark content, because remember, ESPN owns Pac-12 After Dark. That label, ESPN owns that. So you can't call it that. So what could you call it that? I don't know. Late night Pac-12, that works. I actually think that works really, really good. Late night Pac-12. I like, you know what? One thing that we don't realize is sometimes we're conditioned so much, like it's branded into our brains, that we think that that's the best thing. But really think about it. Pac-12 After Dark versus late night Pac-12. I actually like late night Pac-12 better. I mean, I know a lot of people are going to say, no, I still like Pac-12 After Dark. And I understand it. That's what we've heard. That's what it's been branded. I understand. So most people are still going to say Pac-12 After Dark. But I'm telling you, now that I'm thinking about it, late night Pac-12, that sounds really stinking good. Sounds honestly, it almost sounds like a party too, because all these late night shows. It's late night with this and late night with that. So you're kind of branding it with that. And oh, by the way, if it's NBC, it kind of falls into that category. Oh my goodness, I'm really thinking this through. So, NBC has these late night talk shows, and so on Saturday night it would be late night Pac-12, and it would be kind of just going along with the programming that they've been doing during the week, except on Saturday it's football. I really like it. I think that would be a great branding move by the Pac-12 and for NBC. I like it. I might actually do a video on that as well. So is this the saving grace? Is this what saves the Pac-12? Are they good now? If this happens, what needs to happen for the Pac-12 to actually stay together? Because remember, even if they do get these offers, you have to satisfy Oregon and Washington. Those are your two premier brands. And we know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, that those two teams do indeed want to go to the Big Ten. That's where they want to go. So what would it take to satisfy Oregon and Washington to stay in the Pac-12? We've heard rumors of, they might possibly want unequal revenue share, stuff like that. And maybe that's true. I don't know. It makes sense. I mean, they're definitely far and away the best football brands left in the Pac-12. So, yeah, it definitely makes sense. I don't know if the Pac-12 would oblige that. I don't know if that would be enough to keep Washington and Oregon. But it's not a terrible idea, and you need to look into it if it's possible. But if that's off the table, then you're going to have to come up with a good enough deal to where Washington and Oregon want to stay. And if I'm the Pac-12 and I'm trying to keep Washington and Oregon to stay, I am preaching into them. I am drilling into their head. Remember, guys, if you stay in the Pac-12, this is your best chance of getting to the playoffs. Remember, playoff expansion is coming. All right, guys? If you go to another conference, your chances of winning that championship and getting to the playoffs go down significantly. But if you stay here, if you stay home here in the Pac-12, you'll have a much, much, much better shot of winning the conference, the Pac-12, and getting that automatic bid into the playoffs. So there are some pitches for the Pac-12 to keep them in. Larry Pilgrim, thank you for the $5 donation, says, in 2022, 37 games were on Pac-12 Network. 43 games were on cable. They were already hidden for close to 50% of their games anyways. Yes, I agree with that. The Pac-12 Network and the ACC Network, they both had issues as far as availability to the public. So I agree with that. But in this particular deal that we've been looking at, we're going from 50% down to 10% of their games being available to the general public on the major networks. So I agree with you. That's a fact. I understand what you're saying. But this next step would be a drastic step to where it would hurt the Pac-12 tremendously if things worked out the way we've been seeing as far as streaming heavy or streaming exclusively and only one game a week. That is a whole different ballgame besides 50%. But I do agree with you. John Teal, thank you for the $5 donation, says, if $35 million at 10, everyone gives up $4 million, so two more teams can make about $20 million each. Yes. Don't we have to have at least 12 teams to dump division? No, that rule is out the window. The division rule is out the window. So you can have 10 teams, 12 teams, 13 teams, 15 teams, whatever teams. You don't have to have divisions anymore in order to have a conference championship. That's why the ACC is going without divisions, and that's why the Big Ten says they're probably going to go without divisions. Big 12 is already without divisions. I don't know if they'll start divisions because they're going to have 12 teams. But SEC, they've talked about it, but I really don't know if the SEC is going to go without divisions, especially with Oklahoma and Texas coming in. We'll see. But as far as that argument goes, the Pac-12 can have divisions or not divisions. Honestly, even if you did get to 12 teams, I would still stay away from divisions because you want your two best teams playing in that conference championship, because Look what happened last year. You don't want, the team that won the other division, and even though last year the Pac-12 didn't have a division, and Utah just happened to be second best record in the Pac-12, I understand that happened, but it does lessen the possibility of a lesser team having that one magical game and winning the conference, and boom, your conference is out of the playoffs. If I were the Pac-12, no matter what, stay away from divisions. If I were any of these conferences, get away from divisions, because you could screw yourselves over out of a playoff spot or out of a higher seeding, anything like that. Listen, I saw exactly what the playoff committee was doing. They were keeping LSU as high as possible. LSU, and I have LSU subscribers, but you have to agree with me on this, LSU guys. I know y'all had some good wins. You did. But that ranking that y'all had at the end of the year, or even after you beat Alabama, was just way, way, way too high. But the playoff committee knew that LSU had a chance to win the SEC West, so they had to keep them ranked high just in case. Just in case they did the unthinkable and they beat Georgia, then they would have every excuse in the book to put LSU in the playoffs. And then they could have also put in Georgia, because they're not going to keep out a one-loss Georgia out of the playoffs, especially after what they did last year as well. So the SEC really was the only conference that was kind of living outside of that rule. Every other conference, if you have a winner of the other division that was not very good, 3 or 4 losses, then you're out of the playoffs if they win the conference championship. I mean, look at the Pac-12. That's exactly what happened to Pac-12. Utah had 3 losses. They beat USC. Pac-12 doesn't make it. Michael Campbell, thank you for the $5 donation. Really appreciate it, buddy. Says, explain how Notre Dame makes their money as an independent. $54 million in profits in just CFB. Well, there's part of it right there, but the other part is NBC. I mean, NBC has been fitting the bill for a while. I will say this: their current deal with NBC is definitely outdated. They don't make, I don't know the exact amount, but I think it's around $30 million. Which, if you're thinking Notre Dame, that's not a lot at all. But before these new deals, Notre Dame was making way more than everybody else. What changed everything was these new deals by the SEC and the Big Ten with Fox and ESPN. That's what changed everything. Because before these new deals, Notre Dame was just banking. They were making more than everybody by a lot. And we're talking at $30 million. Right now, $30 million is like, well, that's less than the Big 12. That's not good at all. Yeah, but this deal is very outdated. It's was it like a 15-year deal? I don't know how long it is, but it's outdated. But at the time that they made the deal, it was a great deal, and it was a deal that surpassed everybody else. And that's why, Notre Dame got talked about the way they got. Oh, Notre Dame, look at Notre Dame getting their rear end kissed by NBC again, making all that money. They're not even in the conference. Well, now with their current deal, they're not making that much. And this next go around, Notre Dame will ask for between 60 and 80 million. So the question is, will NBC be willing to make that payoff for Notre Dame? I think the answer is no. And I think we see, I mean, listen, just 2 or 3 weeks ago, we heard about the rumors that NBC is interested in the NBA. Right there, that's going to make a dent in the money they can offer to the NBA. Now they're interested in the Pac-12. I mean, call me crazy, but this could be NBC saying straight up, Notre Dame, we can't do it. We can't do it. If you want to accept, $40 million, we can do that. Of course, they won't accept $40 million. That will not be enough. Well, our second opinion, or the second option, is join the ACC, and then you can make your 60, 65 million. That's how they would do it. NBC has been enabling Notre Dame this entire time, and now that renegotiation is coming up real soon, NBC could be the network that forces Notre Dame into a conference. Oh, but going to Blue, Notre Dame is going to join the Big Ten. They'd rather be in the Big Ten and make all that money. Well, like I stated before, it's in their contract. If they join a conference before 2036, it has to be the ACC. It has to be. It's in their contract. So there's that. Bring in NBC as a partner. ESPN would raise their money as well, and it still wouldn't be as much money as what they would have to put into the Pac-12 to keep them going. So for ESPN, it's like Pac-12, Notre Dame. Oh, Notre Dame, definitely. If they had the choice between the Pac-12 and Notre Dame with the ACC, they're going to pick Notre Dame with the ACC, and they still might not have to spend as much money because they would be bringing in NBC as a partner as well. Because NBC will spend some money on Notre Dame. I just don't think they'll spend the money that Notre Dame wants. And I think NBC being interested in the NBA and now the Pac-12 proves that. Yes, we'll give you some money, but it's not going to be what you want. If you join the ACC, we can be a part of that. ESPN will be the other part, and then you can have the money. And then, like I mentioned earlier, Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, Miami Hurricanes, they'll get what they want. Even the lower teams with unequal revenue share, they'll still be making more than what they make now. I'm telling you, that makes a lot of sense, and it seems like NBC is tipping their hat to that. Maybe I'm way off. Maybe NBC does get a piece of the Pac-12 and the NBA, and they have enough to pay Notre Dame to stay independent. Who knows? But I think this particular idea that Packer 910 laid down, saying that, if NBC were to come in with ESPN, Notre Dame joining the ACC, they could still have all of Notre Dame's home games, but if there's another more enticing game, like he said, an undefeated Clemson versus an undefeated Florida State, and they wanted that game, then they can give ESPN the Notre Dame home game if it's like a Notre Dame versus Virginia or Notre Dame versus Duke or Notre Dame versus Georgia Tech, whatever, one of the lower games. And, of course, ESPN would be like, yep, we definitely want to broadcast a home game for Notre Dame. And maybe they could, allow NBC to have one Notre Dame road game like Packer 910 suggested as well. A lot of options out there. I really do think the days of Notre Dame being an independent are numbered, or at least in the sense of having an independent deal with NBC are numbered. I really do. I think that definitely is right before us. Now, whether it's this go around or the next go around, I don't know. But I think eventually Notre Dame is in a conference. I really do. John Teal, great supporter of the channel. Really appreciate it, buddy. $2 donation says, they own USA Channel too. I'll watch my pack. Yeah, that's what we're talking about. USA and NBC now interested in PAC. So it really could be the saving grace of the Pac-12, and it could affect Notre Dame as well. And honestly, if Notre Dame has a choice of what conference they want to go to, even if they weren't tied into the ACC by contract, think about it. Easiest road right now to the playoffs, Big Ten, ACC, it's going to be the ACC. So even without that lock-in clause, as far as having to join the ACC if they join the conference before 2036, maybe they pull a Florida State. Remember, back in it was early 90s or late 80s, Florida State was offered an invite from the SEC and the ACC. What did they do? They chose the ACC, and Bobby Bowden said it's because it's easier to get to the national championship in the ACC over the SEC. I could 100% see Notre Dame doing the same exact thing, and I would applaud them for that. I would agree with them. That would be the smart decision, and I think it would be the right decision. I think they would be making the money that they want. They would be labeled the savior of the ACC, and it would be the easiest path to the playoff. So if Notre Dame does end up joining the conference, I think it's going to be ACC, and I do think that's going to happen. And no, I am not tying West Virginia into it this time. I think that ship has sailed. It's not going to happen. West Virginia is not going to the ACC. So that's not part of this argument. Maybe the ACC brings in Memphis. I don't know. That's not necessary, though, because remember, you don't have to have an even number of teams to have a conference championship now, because the division rule done away with. So you can actually have a 15-team conference and still have a conference championship without divisions. 2 best teams play for the conference championship. Boom. No problem whatsoever. Easy. Think about it, guys. It makes a lot of sense. And what really makes it a lot of sense, is the fact that NBC has said they're interested in the NBA, and now NBC is interested in the Pac-12. That's what makes all of this possible. If they had not shown interest into other things, then I would have been like, no, they're going to lock Notre Dame for another 30 years. They're going to pay Notre Dame what they want. Don't worry about it. Notre Dame's going to stay independent forever. No. Now that they're showing interest in other stuff, I think the days of Notre Dame being independent, I think they're done, guys. But you know what? It's not a sad thing. I know for Notre Dame fans, they're going to be, oh, man, there goes our mystique. There goes our national brand. Guys, got to let go of that. That is so outdated. Notre Dame is Notre Dame because they're Notre Dame. It really doesn't have anything to do with being independent. That's so cliche now. It's stupid. It's nonsense. So is UConn. Who cares? You have to get over that thing that's been brainwashing you. No, we need that independent status. That's what Notre Dame football is all about. Why? Doesn't have. That's dumb. Got to get over that. Got to move on. Everybody else in every other conference and every other team. I mean, look, you haven't won a national championship since 1988 when you beat West Virginia. So, how has being independent actually helped you? And the couple times that you did make it to the national championship since, you played such a soft schedule that when you got there, you got absolutely dunked, smashed, squashed. It's time to get in the conference. And I would say the ACC because you want to make the playoffs. That is the easiest path to playoffs. By the way, guys, I will be getting a new laptop soon, so I'll be able to invite some more guests on. As far as people that want to join in the chat, we'll leave the link in the comments section. I know I haven't been able to do that in months. Stupid laptop went down, and I don't know why I'm not able to do that on my phone. So we will be getting that soon. I'm very excited about that. How about, guys, the check it out. How about the I want to do this real quick, guys. Bear with me. Hopefully I don't mess this up. All right, here we go. Let me unplug this. Hopefully I'm not too shaky. I want to be as still as possible. Well, no, I tried to be as still as possible. Then I dropped it. So we have, let's see here. We now have almost 80 mini helmets. We got the Iowa one tonight. So we have the Big Ten up top. We have the SEC next. We got the Georgia one today as well. Finally, I can't believe it took that long to get a Georgia mini helmet, but it is what it is. And then the next shelf, we have the ACC. Hopefully, I'm holding y'all at the right level. I can't tell because I'm behind you. So there's the ACC. There's the Pac-12 right there. I mean, I'm absolutely amazed with the response. And then finally, the Big 12 down here. And then we have some mini helmets down here. We got the group of 5 down here, some of those. And, of course, Fresno State and... Did I get Fresno State? Yeah, there we go. Fresno State, Boise State. I mean, you guys have blown me away. And today I actually got a UCLA alternate helmet. I didn't know they had the dark blue, but there's the alternate helmet right there. UCLA, I thought that was pretty cool. And then the alternate Arizona Chrome. That's really cool. Then this is really weird right here. The Memphis mini helmet, but it's a cup holder and a card holder. How cool is that? I'm going the wrong way. That is so weird, but cool at the same time. So yeah, I'm sorry guys. I had to give y'all a tour because I'm very, very excited about all the mini helmets. I was not expecting the reaction that I got from everybody. Before we get out of here real quick though, John Teal, thank you for the $2 donation, says, Dear Houston and Texas Tech, you will go with me. Love the pack. You know what? I'm actually going to do a video on that because I've heard people kind of talk about that in passing and stuff like that. So I'll do a video on that as well. I mean, who knows? Maybe NBC can work something out, and they can get. I wouldn't say Houston though. I would say Texas Tech and Oklahoma State. I think that would be the biggest chances of doing that. Anyways, guys, I have a big day tomorrow. A lot more videos to do. We won't be having a live show unless something big happens tomorrow. Let me put you guys back up here. Tour is over. But anyways, hopefully you had a good time. I don't know if you noticed or not. I didn't quite have as much energy as I usually do. Honestly, I'm very worn out. This week has been very exhausting, not just because of YouTube, but because of other things. A lot of stuff going on around here. So sorry, didn't have as much energy, but as long as you had a good time and you were entertained, that's all I'm worried about. I had a good time. Hopefully you had a good time as well. We'll be back tomorrow with more videos, of course, like we always do. And if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. This is what we do every single day. Every day. We don't take a day off. The only time that I missed a day was whenever I had the stomach bug and I literally couldn't get out of the bed because I was so dizzy. I think it was like 1 or 2 days. That was it. Even when I had COVID, I still did videos. Now I had to do like 3 minutes, then take a break, and then do 3 more minutes, and then, cut it together. But I still did it. So the only time that I didn't was whenever I had the stomach bug. Just basically impossible. Anyways, appreciate everybody stopping by. We had a almost record-breaking month. We'll see if it actually breaks the record. The biggest month that we've had since July. And it's all thanks to you guys. I really appreciate it. Make sure to tell a friend and a family member about Gone Unbloated. Word of mouth still works, guys. Tell a friend, tell a family member. Let's keep this thing going. Let's don't lose momentum, especially in the off season in March. Wow, how we had a banner month, I have no idea. It's because of you guys. I really, really appreciate it. But as of Friday night, right now, Golden Blue Dude, say it with me, is officially out.